Hello, y'all, and welcome to episode one of the Wandering Desk. My name is Taylor, but you will get to know me as Tay, and this lovely lady beside me,
I am Leah.
Leah Lucy Lou, if you're feeling nasty, okay?
Okay.
But we want to officially welcome you to our brand new venture, The Wandering Desk, which is a podcast and blog series and content series all about speaking into the empowerment that we have had the opportunity to find through travel and through specifically remote work and integrating that into our lifestyles in a way that has allowed us to embrace all of who we are, all the layers of who we are, as opposed to just being an employee first.
Yes.
Yes. So, and just the empowerment that we have found through travel and how it has fed into a new understanding and a very beautiful evolution of our self-care and what that looks like. So we would just like to invite you all to join us on this journey as we travel the globe and sometimes just travel Atlanta, Georgia, down the street in our hometown. But just to show you these flexible work styles, how we're using these opportunities for flexible work to empower us and just build into nurturing ourselves.
Okay. So with that being said, Miss Tay, who are you, and
Whew.
what does all that entail with Tay and being a remote employee, which we'll get into because right now you aren't quite fully
Not fully remote.
So we'll get into that a little later. But who are you?
That is a question. But in terms of the Wandering Desk in this experience right now, I would say who I am, or let me start with my career, because I feel like who I am is that's a layered question.
Yes.
So we'll get to know each other through the course of this journey. But in terms of my career and professionally, I started out in the world of entertainment media, which was a wonderful way to kickstart my career. And it did mean that long before the days of COVID, where I think a lot of people were introduced to remote work, I was always in remote work. I worked in digital media. I never was someone who was going into an office 5 days a week. So it's very much how I learned to be productive and to perform was I was always remote. I always had to operate in that space. So I started out in entertainment media before I transitioned into social issues, mainly because I was covering a lot of the heartbreaking stories that I realized were affecting my community in particular, in terms of police brutality, in terms of just a lack of economic sustainability in our neighborhoods, environmental racism, so many different complex issues that I felt like were affecting my community. And I just wanted to help be a voice to advocate for change and help, lift my community however I could. And after 10 years in the digital media space, I transitioned into more of a marketing and sales role, which I have loved mainly because I feel like in today's marketplace, businesses are given such an immense amount of power. So I think when we're very intentional about the messages we're sharing through our businesses, which is what I help entrepreneurs do now, when we're very intentional about the stories we want to share and the messages that our businesses are sharing and the purpose that these businesses are operating from, it just helps us make the world a better place because we've seen news outlets struggle just to find funding, but these companies who have huge budgets to put behind their content and their marketing, it's where a lot of our information is coming from today. So now I'm in marketing and sales, and I have been loving it ever since, and it has allowed me to continue my remote work journey with the exception of the latest contract I accepted, which was a hybrid work situation. Actually, it was originally completely traditional. We kind of negotiated some remote work days in there, but I think we'll get into the tea on that a little later. Just looking at the differences between remote work and where I started, where I had this complete freedom and flexibility in my schedule, and then now landing at a place where I am expected to make a hour-long commute, to be in an office for 8 hours a day, and to still maintain that same level of productivity, which is not practical or sustainable.
And we will definitely get into that because because we both know we are very much pro remote professions.
Yes.
So definitely want to get into that. I guess I'll give a little bit of background on me and my journey into the remote force. So at the height of the pandemic, when everyone was remote, I never went remote. I didn't get into remote work until very recently, after getting into the tech field, which I love. I love, love, love. Also, that profession is alongside with my degree, and I have a degree in computer information systems. So just transitioning into a space that truly fits my wants and my needs. But a little bit before that, I did work as an admin assistant at I guess I'll say a beauty company. It was an umbrella company for a couple of different brands. We had a makeup brand, an elite spa brand, a nail brand. It was just kind of a hub. And I stayed there, or I was an admin assistant for about a month. And then, they saw the work. The work speaks for itself.
Period.
And within a month, I was promoted to the makeup brand, which, if you know me, which you don't right now, but you will, I'm a makeup girly, okay?
Period.
I'm a makeup
She
girly.
beat this space today.
So I love that space. Unfortunately, we did have to part ways due to COVID. I will say that I don't believe that COVID was the whole reason, in the misunderstanding, but I will say that it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. Just letting me go and having to figure it out because I wasn't using my degree. And I know that that was getting to me, and just knowing like I want to get into tech, but as a Black woman in tech, that space isn't always inviting. And I had been on all of the interviews, they fly you out, they get you to the final interviews, and you're great, you were amazing, but you should do sales, because why would you want to go into tech? So I was kind of battling with that. And what I will say is the makeup company gave me time to have a break. And I do think that sometimes it's okay to take a break, not to fully step away, but I needed to step away from so many no's and regroup, and get into a space where somebody did highlight my work and,
right,
showed me that like you are a good employee, not even specific to your profession, but just overall. So I do appreciate them for that space. Right after that, I went into property management, actually, which was a different space, I will say. I didn't stay long. I'm going to be honest on that. It wasn't for me.
And that requires you to be on site, right?
Yes.
To do property management. There is no budge on that.
And you actually do 1 to 2 Saturdays a month. So on top of your 5-day work week, sometimes it can become 6, and we all know the week is 7 days. So,
which is so interesting because we've even seen trends where now companies are moving away from a 5-day work week, and they're saying 4-day work weeks are even better for productivity. But there's still these, there's so many grandfathered in structures where a 6-day work week is unheard of. I think. It's obviously not unheard of, but it would be unheard of in my world.
To me, yeah. So I definitely did step into that space. Right after that, I was kind of struggling with that self-care balance of, work and me, and I got to a space where I was literally going to run away. Like, I wanted to move to Texas. Everybody said IT is better in Texas. I just wanted to pick up and move and start over. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And although I could have taken the risk, I wasn't quite ready. But I was on the way to, just fully commit to that when my first IT position actually landed in my lap, and I was in healthcare IT, which is a big, big part of IT as well. Ooh. Because those are 2 fields that aren't going anywhere. You have a job for life.
Growing exponentially is what they're doing.
Okay. But with that, again, we still see the 5-day work week. That one was a little bit more tricky, although it did allow me the space to become an IT professional. It wasn't in the way that I felt was respecting me. Right. So I started as an intern with a bachelor's degree in computer science. How do you start off as an intern when you already have a degree? But me wanting to humble myself and just take that experience and get the knowledge, I took it. And it was a slow crawl. And I truly mean a slow crawl to even get to a salary position, which at one point I was the only IT person. I was the whole department. I was the head, I was the staff, every part of the IT department, it was pretty much myself. And I don't think that I was compensated correctly for that. So getting in that space, understanding my job, and the role and IT, and you start to evaluate your skill set, and you understand, okay, I don't want to burn a bridge, but I understand that I've outgrown you.
Right.
And sometimes you outgrow a company faster than you expect. Because I know back in the day, we think we need to stay here for 5 to 10 years, get a reputation. I was out before too, because there's no way I can show up to a job every day that I know I'm not being compensated right for, and then still show up and be my full self. The compensation and the stress and the amount of work, it just wasn't leveling out.
Right.
What I do want to say, and I want to give a special shout out to my mentor, Tavares. I met Tavares at that company. Unfortunately, he left a little bit earlier than I did, but it was an eye-opening experience. First of all, to see a successful Black male in tech, and the fact that he was so willing to transfer that knowledge, which is why I was able to leave so early and know my worth and navigate through certain things. And so now I am a client advocate for a commercial real estate IT MSP for 5Q, which I love. I am fully remote. Okay.
Yes.
We have an office if you so choose. If you want to be around, and you can go. It's they do have employees that like to go in the office every day. I unfortunately am not. I don't want to drive to Alpharetta. I stay in the city of Atlanta. I'm not driving to Alpharetta. But I do go up there sometimes, mostly for our meetings or something, just to show face. But I just love the space that I'm in, being a remote professional, being in a professional IT field. And I think for me, being in a field that is solely IT. It's not healthcare one side, IT one side.
Right.
It's solely IT. I think I've truly found my love for it, and it's making me want to expand for myself. Yes. So I truly love my job. That's where I am right now, and currently working to kind of get into the cybersecurity field.
Yes. So we love it. We love the evolution, the growth. So you went from, obviously a very non-remote work situation into a fully remote work environment. How do you feel like your workflow and your productivity shifted once you were in this fully remote position in IT?
Listen, I am my most productive self in this job. To even measure it, because shout out to my company. When I first started, I had one client, and I was getting trained on this one client, and they asked me, would you mind helping out on a second client in the meantime, which did require me to go back into the office, but it was an option, and I appreciate that. They gave me the option. If I want to, I can. If I don't want to. So I did take that opportunity, and I went in, and it fast-tracked me.
Yes.
So when I got to my remote position, don't get me wrong, I was productive in the office, but once I got home and I don't feel like somebody's standing over me, or because in our business we have clients, so it's not necessarily that I'm in the office with my coworkers. I show up at a client site, and the client wants to see whatever it is that they're paying for, but it's like, is your computer broken right now? Well, then you can't stand over me and wait till something breaks. So don't get me wrong, I love the opportunity, and it allowed me to show them that I can go above and beyond. And I will say that experience was amazing, because actually one of the partners came to me at our retreat, knew me by name, knew me by work, knew me by my work.
Because the work speaks for itself, honey.
Okay. And so once I transitioned over to the next client, and I'm just pushing out what I think is just a norm. This is my norm. I'm at home. I can do whatever. I can take a break. I can come back. It allows me to step away and not have to tell somebody where I'm going. So once I stepped into the next level, they knew me by name.
Period.
that work was just, pushing it out. And so it changed my idea because I'm like, everybody was working from home.
Right.
I didn't get to experience that. Now that I'm working from home, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And now I do want to take it to the next level and add some of that travel in.
Yes.
And my company has no issue. The one thing I did bring up to them is I'm a travel junkie. I will hop on a flight quick, okay?
Period.
And I told them, like, we're 100% remote. How do you feel about travel? Like, how do you feel if I wake up one morning and I want to go? And they were nice enough to even say, just tell me what time zone you'll be in so that we can accommodate your hours to the place that you're at, instead of, hey, it's 5 a.m. here, but it's 8 a.m. back home. Let me wake up and get online. Right. They will even adjust it for you because it's not about the time. It's about your work.
Yes.
It's about what you produce, what you're giving to the company, and they realize that. And yes. I solely appreciated that, which allows us to be in New York today.
Okay. And that's that's a huge thing you brought up that I want to touch on is, a lot of employers who are resisting remote work, I think there's such a fear that by allowing my employees to work off site, they're all of a sudden going to start slacking. They won't be productive. How do I make sure they're doing their jobs? And the reality is, when you are creating these remote work programs, it's, as you said, it's a huge shift from just the hours of just, I have a warm body in my office for 8 hours a day, right? And it doesn't matter if you were working. I mean, if they're just looking over your shoulder waiting for you to be doing something, I can absolutely do this and bullshit.
Yeah.
I could be doing nothing. And especially if you don't understand what I'm doing, I could do this all day.
Yeah. Click, 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 click. It's just the noise.
And I could be thinking about, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? I could be thinking about, I'm going to step out with the girls tonight. I could be, I could still be bullshitting.
Yeah.
But when you switch to remote work and allowing your employees to be in these remote situations, you're switching to a results-oriented mindset.
Yes.
So now it's about, am I getting you the results that we need to win as a team, right? So it's not about necessarily when I do it. I could do it at 4 a.m. in the morning if that's the best time for me to do it. I could do it at 10 o'clock at night if the best for me as an individual. So for you to shift into this space where now your work is speaking for itself, because you have clients who recognize you, who are requesting you. I know when you were early on, I remember, one day I was having a conversation with her and she had one client at this new job and it was really exciting. And by the next time I spoke to the girl again, my good sis is like, oh, they have me on 5 teams. I'm like cross training. I have to fix everything for everybody.
Yes.
And it was beautiful because it, like you said, it was just, now you were in this space where you were able to be your most productive self, which comes from being your happiest self, which comes from being able to embrace the level of freedom that works for you. And now the results are better. So for any employer who's out there and you're just so worried about remote work, you have to realize that letting your employees be their best selves is actually a win for you, because not only does it make them more productive, it also builds that loyalty. You just said, to the other positions, you were like, I was in, girl, and I was out. When someone gives you the ability to say, hey, I love the results that you bring to our team so much that I want you to be able to, if travel helps you keep doing what you've been doing, baby girl, travel where you need to go. Let me know what time you will be in.
Yes.
And that's huge.
I want to put in one thing. Also, I'm not going to get too deep into this right now because we're going to get into it later in the podcast. But not only does my job allow remote work and they encourage travel, you get one travel expense. Oh. So you can pick TSA pre-check, you can pick global entry, you can pick, I'm a clear girl.
Come on, clear.
They definitely pay for our clear, because sometimes you might have to travel for your client. It's not guaranteed, but the fact that they even offer that to be like, hey, I know you're remote and you might have to travel, and even if you don't, here's a perk.
Right.
here's a perk for you. So that perk for me was very personal. Like,
Right.
this is an incentive to the job because I love to travel. And it wasn't even about me, but baby, it's about me.
Period.
I love to travel, so you're gonna give me this?
Mm-hmm.
Listen,
Period.
I am on the plane. I am at the airport. I am wherever you need me to be because you gave me the incentive
Right.
to even be able to travel and still work and be my best self.
Right.
So
I have a very dear friend who said, when you accept a new job offer, you're joining a company, not a cult, right? So the concept of loyalty to this company has to come from a mutually beneficial relationship.
yes,
I would like the opportunity to work for you, but you have to also show that you want the opportunity to work with me because I do bomb shit. Okay. So if you want these results that will have your clients knowing me by name and requesting to work with your company because they want to work with me, you have to invest in me just as much as I'm investing in you. It has to be. It's a relationship. So they're pouring into you, and once they pour into you, it gives you more power to be able to pour right back into the company. So it's beautiful.
Yes. Well, I want to get into you and your remote work journey because we talked a little bit about fully remote days, hybrid, a 6-day work week. So you went from being 100% remote, even before we were all seeking remote positions or that was the norm of the world. You were already, fully remote. And to now being in a hybrid position with a major commute, with, a major change in your work style. So, how has that been for you, and why remote work for you?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I have to say it's been incredibly eye opening because if you had asked me this question at the start of this new opportunity, I probably would have told you that, I worked remote so long. I remember there were multiple times where I would say, I'm getting tired of seeing the same four walls because I was working remote and I was work from home. I was not work from anywhere you want. It was work from home. It was very important that I was, in a specific area. So I wasn't necessarily moving around a lot. Okay. So there was an element of burnout of being in a small space. I was also living in Los Angeles at the time. So if you know LA's rental market, I was in a little shoebox that they decided to call an apartment, and I don't know how they got to call it that and still charge me as much as they was charging me for it, but that's another story. So I was more open to the idea of, I'm gonna go to an office, I'll get to be with my colleagues. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful.
So before you get too deep into it, was this new contract in LA?
No, this was in Atlanta.
Okay.
So now I had moved back to Georgia, closer to my family, just starting a new chapter. And so I took this opportunity and I thought it was a company I was familiar with. They essentially distribute products for a company I had worked with before. Okay. So before I was working in sales for a pioneer in the pet CBD space, which was such an incredible opportunity. I learned so much from that company, and they have a very dynamic team, which was just a blast to work with. And I took this new opportunity because I moved to Georgia. The company was based in Tucker, Georgia. Okay. So it just seemed like a good fit. And once I started, I realized how it just wasn't practical anymore. My commute was 50 minutes one way, right? So it's almost an hour in the car just to get to work. Then it's sometimes an hour and a half, an hour plus to get home. So the burnout started to settle in a way that I was just completely not expecting. I'm now at a place where I'm not able to get adequate sleep. I'm at a place where I'm not able to focus at work because there's so much being taken away from what allows me to be my best self.
Right.
I'm not as productive because I don't have time to do my meal prep. I don't have time to eat the way I usually would eat. I can't take breaks. It was huge for me to be able to take breaks, go walking, do yoga, do some movement, helped me focus. I listened to a podcast called Erica Taught Me, who I just love, by the way. I'm just obsessed with this girl's podcast. She's amazing. But she had a guest on there who actually competes in memory competitions. So she's all about just like optimizing your brain. I think she's the Guinness World Record holder for being able to memorize the most like names to faces. And I want to say, I don't remember how much time they gave her, but just, wow. I mean, like maybe an hour or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But she remembered like over like hundreds of people's names to like names, faces in a very short amount of time. And so, you know, when she was on this podcast, I'm thinking, you know, she's talking about how you can improve your memory, how you can improve your brain function. And I'm waiting for her to come up with all these complicated things you have to do to get your brain elevated to a place where you could do this. And her biggest piece of advice was just getting adequate sleep. When she's competing, she's actually getting 10 hours of sleep, is what she is like swears by. But
we barely get 8.
Okay, and 6 to her, according to her, 6 to 8 is like your sweet spot. That's where you want to be landing. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not even touching 6 hours of sleep at this point, because between the commute, between, you know, okay, I'm going to sit in traffic. By the time I get home, it's going to be a mess trying to go to the grocery store. So now I'm going to the grocery store during peak hours. I'm trying to run errands at peak hours. It took up so much of my time now that I had to physically be in an office space Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. And so I just felt myself becoming, you know, I still get my job done. I do it well. We get great results, but it was costing so much of me. There was not room for any other part of me. All I could do was be this employee, because it's all I had time for at that point.
Right.
And I'm just feeling distracted and burned out and tired. So it was a huge shift and an eye-opening experience to realize I had always heard people talk about why remote work was better and this, that, and the third. And of course I loved remote work because it's what I knew, but I also didn't necessarily know the other side of the coin that well, because remember, the beginning of my career was always remote.
Yeah.
So once I experienced being back in an office and also getting introduced to the distractions that come with being in an office, you have chatty coworkers, you have micromanaging going on. I have an office. I'm not even making this up, y'all. There are 2 windows in my office. One of the windows faces my boss's office. So it's like a micromanagement drive-through window. So just in case,
drive-through window.
It's a micromanagement drive-through window. Whenever there's a new thing that they just want to shout out and put on my plate. It doesn't matter if we haven't talked about this. It doesn't matter if it hasn't been prioritized. It doesn't matter if we haven't, there's no discussion, but just at any given moment, this little window might slide open. Just, I think we need to do this. What if we do this? What if do this? Can we do this by the end of the week? And you have no idea what's on my plate. You have no idea how this interferes with the projects that I've already been assigned. There was none of that was being considered. It's just, here's a bunch of new work. Bye. Close. So that's my first window. Lovely view. Second window actually faces into the warehouse where we are manufacturing and shipping products. So I do not have natural light. There is a cold draft that comes in through this window. I mean, it is just absolutely one of the most uninspiring workspaces I've ever been in. And yet the expectations for me to have a high creative output was even higher than any other company I worked for. And so much of it was just watching me to make sure I'm working, or that I look like I'm working to you.
Yeah.
But another thing that remote work kind of exposed is the idea that if you're micromanaging your employees, remote work is not your enemy. The enemy is that you don't understand what your employees do. That's the real issue.
Yeah.
Because if you think every job requires someone to just be typing for 8 hours a day, that's not real. If you think if I'm not on a phone call, I must be in a Zoom meeting, I have to be doing something that you consider to be work at every hour of my day, that's not practical. Because when am I going to do research to see what keywords might be trending? When am I going to read news articles to see what's going on in our industry? When am I going to have the time to build relationships with our partners? And just, I don't have time for any of that, because you're trying to make sure are you working? What are you doing? And then if I'm not busy, if you feel like I'm not moving enough, then now you come in and you give me more things because you think I'm not
You're
working.
piling it on.
Piling it on.
And that office sounds like 4 walls that you want to escape from.
Woo!
Is it giving LA apartment?
It's giving LA apartment. I mean, good gracious! I think even my LA apartment had more natural light than this, and it was not a place that was full of light. But that the experience and going into this just gave me such a huge learning opportunity, and I do want to say I'm still grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for anyone who sees my work and trusts me enough to say, hey, I want you to come and do what you do for my company. I think that's a beautiful experience and I appreciate that. However, it was just such a hard lesson that I was not crazy. I was not making up this idea that I felt like remote work was so much more empowering to me. It was factual.
It's validating.
It absolutely validated how much I really cared about having this freedom and flexibility in my work schedule. But I think that even kind of brings us to the point of not just why remote work, but why the need to travel. Because, like I said, I had work from home, but I didn't have work from anywhere.
Right, right. I think you said it best when you told me knowledge is the ledge of what you know. So just always trying to push that ledge. My first travel experience was as a 15-year-old little girl going to Australia and New Zealand, which almost is unheard of. And you think like you're just gonna go there, but that opened my eyes to understand that if you are solely an American, you are almost ignorant to a certain degree because we live in our own world. If America could just be a planet, it would be, because when you step outside of our world and you see these different cultures and you see these different lifestyles and different things, it adds to who you are as a person, as you know, your perspective, your opinion on things, and just, you know, how to even sometimes rightfully disagree with somebody and not just be like, I don't want to think the same way you do. It's like, I've seen enough in my life to have formed a great opinion about this, and I just disagree a little bit because maybe you haven't seen as much as me. Not even just to compare, but just to add to your self-worth. Right. You know what I mean? In a light that you see yourself, because what if I'm supposed to be living a life in Paris and I don't know that? What if my greatest career is in Korea? Because sometimes those government contracts are. And some of the main places that America makes the villain, like, oh, this place is just so bad, or what we see on TV. Let me tell you something. The world is not American TV. Okay? What we see is a minute portion of what's really out there in the world. So I think, why travel? Why not? You need to learn. You can't get everything from a textbook or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. It's about life experiences. And
what you mean the people can't get all that information from social media? What?
Because I can sit here and tell you that I'm a newscaster and that I've been all over the world and that I am coming to you live from Croatia trying to...
come on.
And it's not my life. Not my life. Like, I can tell you anything that I want to tell you.
It's intentional, honey. Okay. The messages are intentional. They are crafted, okay? So you have to go get your own experience. You have to get your own story, you have to see it for yourself.
You have to see it for yourself. And then a big thing that I want to add on to there is there are a lot of opportunities in the workforce that sometimes are better than your opportunities in America. So even just to expand your professional portfolio and your experience and diversity, because how we do it here is not going to be how we do it in another place. I know I was in, I had an interview for a tech company where their headquarters was in Qatar. Okay. So I would have been moving, and it's like there are so many other experiences, contracts, and different things. So just don't limit yourself to the American dollar.
100%.
Money is longer than a dollar bill. Okay?
Period.
So get out there. Put yourself out there. You just never know that what you're putting in and what you're getting out from America could be you lowballing yourself. Right. It could be your lowest offer. Or sometimes you go out and you come back and you appreciate, your work,
Mm-hmm.
not to just always bash it, but if you never see something else, you can never have a full opinion about where you are. Am I at a
Absolutely.
good space? Is this all that I can get?
Right.
Or is it something better out there that I've just never been able to see, that I've
Right.
never had access to because I can't hop in my car and drive to Japan?
Right.
You have to hop on that flight and you have to do it and you have to see it, and don't be scared of the world. I feel like sometimes, even for myself, I am a little scared of the world, but I'm a little daredevil, so I will be scared and
Do
still
it
walking
anyway.
down the street. But I feel like sometimes we get so scared because you're scared of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But aren't you afraid to not know? Aren't you
Exactly.
afraid that somebody's pulling your puppet strings and just telling you what they're telling you, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going with it? You don't know these things until you experience it. So get out there. Book the flight.
Book the
Book the
flight.
flight. It's
Book the
okay.
flight.
Pay for experience instead of an actual product. That's what I'll say. I think right now we're all kind of caught up in the physical assets.
Yes.
Let's get back into the experience, because sometimes the experience brings you more money to have better assets. And for my luxury girlies,
Yes.
because I
Speak
am
to
a luxury
him.
girly,
Speak to him.
if you travel, these Louis bags, these Tiffany bracelets, they're actually less expensive. And when you go out there and you buy them, when you come back, you get the tax money back that you paid for your
Oh.
actual products once you come back. So even if it's just simply to
Oh.
elevate your life, or
Oh.
to, whatever your reason to travel is, find a reason and get out there and go and just do
Absolutely.
it.
You have to.
You have
You
to.
it's so crucial, and even when you speak on the opportunities that are in other countries, we just saw another massive wave of layoffs here in the states.
Mm.
And the reality is that this is a very saturated and competitive market at this point. I
Yes.
mean, it's just what it is. Literally thousands of high level employees who have worked everywhere from Google had layoffs, Salesforce had layoffs. I mean, these huge tech companies and all
Yeah.
these companies who are having to, close their doors. I work in the pet space. One of the largest independent like pet chains, and really it's a company of chain stores. It's like a parent of chain stores. They're closing doors for multiple of the businesses that are under their umbrella. And sometimes what I think we miss out on is the skills you have acquired in America, because we are such a economic front runner to the rest of the world. You are insanely valued to these other countries who are doing business in America. They're doing business with American companies. They're manufacturers, they're suppliers, they might be, importers, exporters, all these other things. America does so much work with other countries. So it sometimes it doesn't even require you to live there necessarily. But if you open yourself up to the opportunity that you may have to spend a couple of months there, every now and then go back and forth. There's so many opportunities that exist in other countries because it's not as saturated. It's not quite as competitive, because it's just less people all clamoring to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Where here we're seeing the exact opposite. I mean, it's such a saturated job market right now, wherever
Yes.
you go, minus spaces like IT, which is why I think it's such a great space. Because in these
Mm.
computer science, tech driven spaces, I do think there's a little less competition because there's fewer people who have the skill set. It's still very competitive, don't get me
Yes.
wrong. But versus, I'm in sales and marketing. You know how many people are applying to be sales account managers or
Mm-hmm.
marketing managers or marketing directors? It's a
Right.
very saturated space. So get out there, go to these other countries because there's so much opportunity. I remember when I went to Ghana, we actually had the amazing opportunity to sit down with the amazing, lovely, beautiful, honorable Dr. Bennett, who is the ambassador of the Diaspora Africa Forum. And their whole purpose is to help connect African Americans back to the motherland and kind of build this relationship and help us build a relationship with our brothers and sisters across the water, right? And when we had the opportunity to speak with her, it was, I remember she said, you know, you don't have to you don't have to live here to make an impact here.
Ooh.
Think of all the other cultures that make money in America and they send money home.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look at Hong Kong and what it looked like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it looks substantially different because a lot of those citizens were able to say, "Hey, I'm gonna make this money in the country that likes to make money. Because if there's anything America will do, it will be make some money, and I'm gonna send it back home and build up.
Yeah.
You know, I could build up other places, pour into my homeland."
Right.
And it was just beautiful that in meeting with her, I remember one thing she said was just find a way to make money and have fun.
Ooh.
Make money and have fun and be happy. Just that's and you could do that whether you are in the States, you could do that in another country, and it could honestly help you build up more opportunities in other countries and just even get connected to all these other cultures that truly, I mean, to be honest with you, and not to get too deep into, colonization and things like that. We're not going to get too deep into that kind of conversation on today's episode. But so much of these cultures are already mixed into what you're doing every day. Half of the words you're saying are coming from like French roots, Latin roots, Spanish roots, all these other places. You owe it to yourself to get out of this country that that might be the ledge of what you know, right?
What you know.
That extent of your knowledge, and go see what it's really like in other countries. Because I will admit, I was absolutely, I think people are so afraid of the word ignorant.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's an insult. I can truly say at one point I was very ignorant because I had not traveled, and I was terrified of Africa. I was terrified. I was going to Barcelona and I was terrified. I was like, I don't speak Spanish. What am I going to do? Oh my gosh. And I was so scary. We were in a cafe and there was a group of people like walking down the street with like these protest signs. And, like a couple of them had like a couple of like gas masks something on. But like for the vast majority, it was like a group of people walking down the street, like a protest.
Okay.
And when I tell y'all, I freaked out. I thought this was about to be a civil war that I was going to be stuck in. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get back home. I'm just like freaking out. And it just, of course, nothing happened, y'all. They just kept walking. They were protesting. I think it was like rent increases or something in the area. So it was like a property dispute type of deal. But I will never forget how afraid I was in that moment. And it was only because I had believed the story I had been sold, which was that America is the safe country.
Yeah.
And everyone outside of that is a little dangerous and risky. Yeah. And that wasn't the case. Instead, it ended up being this amazing country where I have never run into so many diverse, even friend groups. There was a group of kids who were all playing together, and some of them spoke French, some of them spoke Catalonian, some of them spoke English, and they like translated for each other. It was almost like this beautiful game of telephone where they're like translating.
Oh, wow, with different languages
so that everyone can understand what's going on. And it was absolutely amazing. So just don't believe the idea that these other places are so scary and that this is the best place to be. Right. This is the only safe place to be. And it doesn't mean you have to. I'm not one of those people who's here to shit on America. That's not what I'm here to do. There's a lot of wonderful things about this country. There's a lot of wonderful privileges that we do have here. Of course, we do got some shit we got to talk about. But
I'm pull that rug back. Get a dustpan.
Okay, got some cleaning up to do, some housekeeping. But I'm just not willing to say it's a terrible place. But I am absolutely all for us just expanding your perspective and getting to know those other experiences, whether it's for work, whether it's volunteer, whatever it is. Get out, explore, expand that knowledge.
Yeah. I do want to touch on a little bit more about travel, but first, what kind of just sparked a thought in my mind, you're like, I'm in Barcelona and I'm seeing this protest happen and I'm so scared, but when we think back to our protests, our protests, I feel like, were some of the most violent. Because if you think back to the one in Atlanta where they were breaking the storefront windows and, shootings and, whereas you said they just kept walking.
They just walked.
They just kept walking. Sometimes our privilege, our entitlement, it's like, I'm going to rip this storefront down. So it's like to even think about that and compare, like, what a protest looks like there and what
Right.
our protest was looking like here. And don't get me wrong, we have peaceful protests, but as far as how scary it can get,
Right.
things get scary here, you know. And then also what you're saying, kind of to step back a little bit more when you were talking about you don't have to live there. If your company is a different country and you have to go there for a couple months, I know y'all like vacation homes.
Okay.
Change your mindset.
Change it.
I have a
Shift it.
vacation home in Qatar. I'm gonna
Come
come. Da, da, da,
on.
da, da. Whatever it is that makes you feel better about it. Sometimes it's just changing your mindset and saying, okay, I have a home here, and that is what it is. So I know, like for us, we get our glitz and glamour feeling from different states right
Right.
now. You know, so I am a New York girly. I love coming here. I like to stay in Manhattan. I like to shop. I like to. I recently just did a whole little train ride by myself, which was crazy, but I just had to do it, y'all. And
it
I'm
shifts.
with my bags, and it just gave Sex in the City. It
Come
gave
on,
Elite.
Carrie.
It was just, you know, it gave
Where's
me
Mr.
everything
Big?
I needed. So I will say definitely mindset, and I know that's big for us too, changing our mindset with travel. Whereas on one end we were just running away. We were using travel as an escape, and don't get me wrong, it is an escape if it's a healthy escape. We were just leaving everything at the door at home and then coming back as if
I'll deal with it later. I'll put it on the shelf. I'll deal with it later.
Disappear. You know, you can travel and still deal with all of your shit. Right. You know what I mean? As long as your travel is healthy and your mindset is healthy, which transitions into our last segment of our podcast where travel and self-care go hand in hand.
Ooh, yes, and it does.
Speaking to this trip specifically and how it came about is changing our relationship with travel. You know, not necessarily running away when things get hard, but allowing ourselves to say, you know what, I need a break. I need a self-care trip, and if I do go out, let me sit down for an hour a day to journal. Right. Let me make sure I schedule in a spa treatment. But sometimes, you know, it's not always about spa, whatever self-care looks like to you. Yeah. Sometimes it's taking a long walk or doing something different. Whatever your self-care means to you is just getting out there and doing that and changing your mindset and your relationship. So I really love the fact that this trip came right at amazing time because today is Tuesday, Valentine's Day, Lover's Day, and we are
celebrating love.
To love on ourselves. We definitely have a spa treatment coming later on today, which I am
much needed,
extremely excited about. But is there anything that you want to tell them about how you came to this trip as well? Because we do have to make the decision separately. But we came together and said New York is where we want to go, but for you and your self-care journey?
Oh my goodness. It was definitely about the fact that, you know, I went through a challenging breakup.
Okay.
And it was a 6-year relationship, and it is a relationship that I'm very lucky to be able to speak very fondly of it. I even, in the spirit of celebrating Valentine's Day, I think it's important for me to say that I'm celebrating just love in all facets and aspects. Okay. And I remember this interview that Lauren London did when she was talking about her relationship with Nipsey, and she was talking about one of her favorite things about their relationship was that she felt like they had a love that existed outside of ego.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yes.
Oh, it was so beautiful.
Oh my gosh. And it ended up coming across my path again, you know, in the midst of this breakup. And it made me realize, like, oh my goodness, this is not this sad, horrible thing that's happening. It's simply a change. It's a transition. And even though we might not have been right for each other in as compatible in a relationship, it just showed me that I had the opportunity to share a life with someone that I really appreciated. I learned so much from it. I grew from it. We both grew as people. And I think that's an amazing thing that you should celebrate, even when the ownership of the relationship itself might not be there anymore. Right? I can still love you beyond the ownership of a relationship.
Right.
But then it encouraged me to look back and just pour into myself and say, well, what did I learn about loving me through this relationship? If I found myself, in my case, I found myself feeling so just unnurtured. I felt so like I was pouring out so much and struggling to get anything back. And at first, I will honestly say, I was upset with my partner, like, why aren't you pouring into me more? And, I like, you should be able to, this should be more reciprocal. But then I realized how much I was neglecting myself in the relationship. Yes. So it pushed me to understand that self-care was more than just, because towards, towards the end of this relationship, I started doing things like, I'll go and maybe like pamper myself today. I'll go have a little relaxing spa day. I'll go and get my nails done. I'll take myself shopping. And that's all fine and dandy. But to elevate the idea of self-care for me was to say to myself, I'm doing more than just finding a way to cope with how I'm feeling. Ooh. I want to evolve to a point where taking care of me and my emotions and how I feel as a woman, as a person, as who I am,
as a black woman,
as a black woman, I wanted to know that I was doing a damn good job at it first. Yeah. And I wasn't. So it put me in a situation where I was so thirsty for someone to nurture me because I was not nurturing myself. That even though I was in a relationship that really wasn't feeding into what I needed at the time, just the idea that maybe one day it might. Here's someone who loves me because I can't even love me. I'm struggling to figure out how to take care of me. Here's someone who at least tells me nice things and feels like, it was, you're just thirsting for this love because I wasn't able to give it to myself. Right. So I wanted to not only be able to care for my emotional needs, but I even wanted to do a better job of financially taking care of me. I wanted to, and a spa day is cute, but my self-care now includes like, I'm giving myself my birthday this year, y'all. I want 2 new income streams. 2 new ones. We got some, but I want 2 new ones. I don't want a new bag. Ones. I don't need a new bag. I don't need another spa treatment. I'm doing my spa treatment today. Okay. But I want to know that I am always capable of caring for me. Yes. So that when I do open myself back up to love, I don't feel like it's someone else's responsibility to come in and take care of me. Right. I want to know that I'm doing a solid ass job of caring for me myself. Right. And I think that allows you to have a more authentic bond with, whoever it is that you do decide to love and give your heart to. Yeah. So, for me, this trip came at a time where it was just all about embracing that freedom. I really wanted to step away from, as we mentioned, a work environment that was also, in the midst of going through a breakup. Now I have this work environment that's taken all of this from me. And then I had a very dear loved one who was dealing with very serious mental health challenges. And then that was taking all this energy from me. And then I'm trying to support other members of my family. And it's just everything was pulling out. And I just wanted an opportunity to say, you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity to step away, right? Because I couldn't be in the midst of it. All of it at home is just too much in the midst of it. So I want to remove myself, but I don't want to avoid anything. I'm not running away. I'm stepping out so that I can launch a new venture that I'm so passionate about, that I am so excited about, that allows me to pour into me. Yes. I'm able to pour into a friendship that has been such a blessing, and to get to have more time to even just bond and connect with you while we're here in New York and just bopping around Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying? Okay. But just celebrating all facets of love, whether it's for myself, my friendships, my endeavors, my spiritual wellness. I just wanted to really take a moment to step out, step away from my norm. Okay. Really builds me up, nurture me so that I can go back and say, I know how to take care of me now. I'm ready to take care of me now. And I'm not afraid to take care of me now.
Showing up for yourself.
Showing the fuck up for me.
Okay. So for me, I'm right there with you, sis. Yes. Ending a relationship, that in itself.
It ain't easy. It ain't easy, y'all.
Finding out different things about myself, ugly truths about myself that I wasn't ready to deal with. Also losing a family member the first time ever, and not really knowing how to cope with that, mm-hmm. and just trying to understand where I am in all of this. You know what I mean? Like, am I okay? Am I not okay? Allowing myself to be okay some days and some days not. Mm-hmm. Hell, sometimes in 1 second and in the next second being like, it's okay to be happy, and 5 minutes later be crying because mm-hmm. your emotion changed. Something happened. You know what I mean? And just really leaning into that and understanding that self-love for me is more so learning where I am with a person, mm-hmm. with myself, with life, with a job or whatever. So I think for me right now, especially, my self-care is very high in knowing how to say no. You know, I am a people pleaser. I am acts of service. I love. And for I love catering to people. It's my thing.
Yes.
It gives
she
me
is
joy.
A lover girl.
I just love to just pour it all out, but realizing that that's neglecting myself. Mm-hmm. I'm so focused on how I make somebody feel, or their view of me, or how they feel, or what do they need, and showing up is just saying, you know what, I can't have this conversation today. Mm-hmm. Even if that conversation is you call me and you say, hey girl, let's go to Chick-fil-A, and I'm in the midst of having a moment that I can't even comprehend, but I'm on the phone trying to push through, mm-hmm. just to say yes or no, just being like, hey, today's not a good day. Right. I'll have to call you back. Or sometimes not even answering my phone, or even how this trip came about, just saying, you know what, too many people have access to me in a time where I don't have access to me. So I need to separate myself to be able to access myself, to say, are you okay? Where are we? What do you need from me? What do you need from people? Because you're so focused on giving things to people, but what do you need from the people around you? Mm-hmm. And sometimes knowing how to verbalize that, because I may feel a certain type of way or need something from a person, but I don't want to feel needy or clingy, mm-hmm. but I'll do anything for them. And it's mm-hmm. like, how can you not get that in return? And so I think even in this friendship, understanding that I need to say, hey friend, I need you for this business venture, for us to just check in, because I've been saying all day, we are the same different person. So just nurturing this friendship too, in elevating to the next level, mm-hmm. having someone that I truly admire. You are lucky charm.
I'm the president. I'm the president of your fan club. Just know.
And just seeing all the amazing things that you're doing. And I felt like for a second I was lost, even in the job. I love my job. No complaints there, no complaints at all. But sometimes you get lost. Like, I don't have the drive right now. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything pushing me, because it feels like the weight of the world is on me and I am frozen. And I can't pick myself up. But the minute my little chess piece gets to moving, it's because I'm trying to get to somebody else's chess piece.
Right.
So it's just like, take that time. If you need to step away, if coming to New York is time for you to be like, you know what, I can put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I can do the things that I want to do. I can go shop in Manhattan. Okay. I can go get me a little cocktail, have me a dinner. Whatever that means to me, and just truly understanding that. But specifically for this trip is learning a self-care process and learning a self-love process, because I don't have it right now. Right. And I don't know how to show up for myself right now. I think especially losing a close family member for the very first time, my brain is scrambled. Mm-hmm. Some moments I'm okay, and some moments I just can't. Mm-hmm. So just redefining my self-love and self-care process, and how that looks for me moving forward. Right. So I'm excited. I'm excited for our Valentine's Day.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to do this first episode. I feel like we've gotten a lot out that we don't usually talk about in a day-to-day. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a known thing.
Right.
And it's like, let's
get it out
on the table,
And share it. And that's even, what I want to be very open about in our dynamic with all of you who are listening is we're not approaching this conversation as if we are experts. We are far from it. I think I think we're remote work experts. We can give you some tea on that. We can tell you how to get yourself, how to negotiate, how to get a little flexible work going on. But when it comes to really understanding and balancing all the facets and aspects of self care and self love in its highest form. Like I said, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm gonna just go get my nails done today, we'll go to the spa today. Like, all of it is cool. Self care is not just a bubble bath, self care is not an aesthetic. Self care is something you have to truly show up and take care of yourself. Is
self care can be ugly.
It can be ugly and it can be hard. And it means sometimes it does mean I'm crying today and I'm honoring the fact that I'm crying, but I also can't stop doing what I have to do to take care of myself today because I refuse to not show up for me today. It's a lot. So I just want to be very open with you all about the fact that we're not approaching this conversation saying we are self-care experts, but we are approaching this conversation from a very vulnerable place and just sharing our experiences with you so that maybe we can all learn from each other and we can all evolve together and figure out how to just take the utmost care of ourselves so we could be our highest selves.
Yeah, I think this is the start of the journey. And just putting it out there, I think, holds us accountable. But it's also for you guys to start your journey as well. Hell, hold us accountable.
Period.
Y'all did not do what y'all said y'all was going to do. It's a process. It's a journey. We're all going on it together.
Because we ain't posted on Instagram in like 2 weeks.
Girl, longer than that for me. I am a ghost on social media right now. But just really showing the good, the bad, the ugly, being honest, just what it means through and through. And I think starting that process is going to be with this trip. You guys will see our budgets, our do's and don'ts of this trip, remote style and self-care style. You'll get just a brief overview of everything New York, everything Valentine's Day, and just showing you guys our first self-care trip, how that goes, the good, bad, and the ugly, like I said. And just
because it's been some ugly.
It has.
Starting with the fact this is our second time recording this episode, but we're not going to talk about that yet.
Because you know what, we had to give us our self-care moment and say we got to step away and record on a different day because we are distraught.
For real, seriously. And that was a huge moment for us to practice self-care. And I even want to say to you, thank you, because having you as my accountability partner in this has been huge, because when that happened, we essentially just had playback issues, lost the first recording, and I was like, you know what? In my usual fashion, like, well, we could just do it now. Let's just push through. Once the cameras start, I'm sure I'll be on. I'll be feeling it. We could push through it. And it's like so obvious. I mean, you could see it on our faces. We might as well have had neon signs on our forehead that said fucking over it. And I'm still just like, oh, no. We could do it. It'll be fine. Let's just push through it. And I think that's my usual toxic behavior with myself, which is, even if you feel that you are at your breaking point, just keep pushing, because once you push through it, it'll be fine until I finally break. And so you were the one who said, actually, friend, we will come back to this tomorrow. We can step away. It is fine to take a break. It is fine to take a pause, because when we take that pause, we are giving ourselves the opportunity to show up even better when we come back to it. But by refusing to take a pause, refusing to take that moment to care for yourself, you are just walking this path of self-destruction, and it's not worth it.
Right. I agree. Well, with that being said, I think this was an amazing second episode.
Okay.
First episode. Yeah.
Something like that.
So I definitely want to close out with just saying thank you for going on this journey with me, for being my accountability partner. In self-love in the professional space, just overall, just being a friend and showing up. And I can't wait to see where we go with this, because it's going to go far. You guys, I can't wait for you to see our journey, and starting with this trip and everything that is to come. Like, comment, subscribe, leave any self-care tips, anything you would like to say, any messages,
questions, whatever you want us to dive into.
Right, whatever is on your heart, feel free to share. We are open and ready to explore this new journey.
Absolutely. And I also do want to say thank you so much to my amazing friend and co-host, who has been so unapologetic in getting me snatched and right. And that is something else I just want to say. Self care sometimes looks like someone having to get you gathered. And I appreciate how you gather me out of absolute love and just constantly remind me who I am, not to settle, that I do deserve to be happy, whatever that looks like for me, and to hold myself to a higher standard and to show up for myself. And I just love you so much. I feel so blessed to have you as my partner as we walk through this journey. And I cannot wait to keep it going.
Yeah.